Announced the launch of public consultations as part of our new defense policy review for Canada.
As we look at the future security environment out there in the 20, 30, 40-year time frame, what kind of armed forces does the country want? Informed by what kind of world are we going to be in and what does Canada want to achieve?
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Those are the big questions, not just for Canada's military, but really for all Canadians. And today, the Minister of National Defence launched the first widespread public consultation on the future of the forces in decades. Ordinary Canadians like you, experts, parliamentarians, will have from now until the end of July to weigh in, and it's all going to feed into the Defence Policy Review, the results of which expected by the end of the year. The Defence Minister, Harjit Sajjan, says he's kick-starting a national conversation, but how comprehensive will the review be? And will the minister actually listen to the public's advice? And what does he see as the force's top priorities? Joining me now, the Minister of National Defence, Harjit Sajjan. Nice to see you, Minister.
Great, thank you for having me.
So what is the purpose of the review? Are you trying to spruce things up? Are you trying to overhaul the way the military's run? Is it a reset? Give me a sense of how you would characterize what the goal is.
Well, it's making sure that we have, when we look at doing a thorough review of our defense policy, is making sure we have it's going to be quite broad, making sure we have the right experts, open to all Canadians, and encourage all Canadians to take part. Making sure that we are structured well, we have the right tools, we have the right policies to be able to support where our government wants to go.
But would you say that it's an overhaul of what is there, given that we haven't really had a defense white paper in many years? Is this a complete redo, or is this fine-tuning? Well,
no, it all depends on how the conclusion of the review itself. And I think the core, I should say I'm confident, the core portions of the military will always remain the same. It has to be focused on being able to, for full intensity conflict. And we've done that. And from that baseline, our troops can adjust with the pre-deployment training depending on the conflict or pre-conflict that you're going into, whether it's going to be supporting the United Nations or full operations like Op Impact in Iraq.
So when you send this out, and it's going to be a broad consultation, as you said, are there parameters around it? Like, you don't think that you can buy 300 fighter jets. We don't have that kind of money. Or is it anything goes? Come up with we're open to any good idea.
No. So as we have produced a document that provides some baseline work, what the military is about, some information, just the bare bones what a military does, so that somebody who can understand and contribute as well.
But it would be fiscal boundaries as well, I would imagine.
When we look at the fiscal side, one is you can say, for example, 300 of X, but do you even need that? So it's an argument you don't really need to go down. What we need to be focusing on is actually capability. Is looking at the threats. Are we structured well for what we want to accomplish? For example, our defense of Canada will always be a priority. Our response internally for domestic response will always have to be there. Our counterterrorism function inside Canada. But then there's also our responsibility and our commitment to NORAD and also to NATO. They will also remain the same.
Right.
How we do our expeditionary operations is, we can take a look at that. But we know it's going to be in a multilateral environment. We're going to work within our coalitions. But it also allows us to, which capabilities do we need? Where are we deficient? Where do we need to increase? And and also, do we have the right numbers and structure as well?
Right. Okay. So that's a much clearer answer for me. So when the Prime Minister talks about peacekeeping and wanting to renew peacekeeping, that then becomes part of the conversation, I guess, right? How does the military adjust to fit that mandate that the Prime Minister has put forward?
Absolutely. And I work actually very closely with Minister Dion, on these issues, including with Minister Bibeau. Our Op Impact, when we announced that, and the work that we did as a government together as ministers, was an example of that, working together. So our government is committed to peacekeeping, conflict prevention. We as a military have the ability to look at that. We will be looking at how the United Nations functions in terms of peacekeeping these days. How do we need to revamp that? So there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen, and how do we fit into the current climate of conflict, because it is quite complex.
Is the budget part of the review? the overall budget that currently exists? Is that something that will be on the table for consideration? We need more, we need less. Is that part of the conversation?
The plan increases will remain, and as I stated, and just like in this budget, we had the 2% increase in our operational budget. In fact, we actually got a $200 million increase for military infrastructure this year as well. So the plan increases will be there, but the defense review will allow us to take a look where we potentially might need to make adjustments, and potentially we need to make investments as well.
So reallocating money, is that something you would be open to, saying, okay, well, we need to purchase these things in order to accomplish this task, so we're going to move money around?
Absolutely.
Something you can do. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
In terms of the procurement process, I know that it's not all your file. There's other people involved. We're at the very beginning of things, and that the money has for now been pushed out, right? That's what the finance minister said. Is there anything in the review process that will happen that will take some things off the table? So, for instance, the Liberal Party during the campaign committed to investing heavily in Navy ships. Is that still going to be on the table, even if the defense review policy says we don't want that anymore?
No, there's certain staples that we have to move forward. It's not that we're going to be stopping everything and allow the defense review to be completed and then carry on. We have committed to replacing our F-18, so the work will continue.
Okay. We're
committed to the National Shipbuilding Program, and the reprofiling of the money, that was actually based on my request, because internally we had to make sure that if you look at the time frame as a government we have taken over, we need to, if we can't write the checks during that time frame, we're going to be losing that money. I was actually, it shows Canadians how that the Prime Minister supports the military. We're able to reprofile the money for when we need it. So if you look at the timing of it, defense review become completed, and then when we look at the procurement cycle of when that happens, we're placed that money for the time when we actually need to be able to write the checks.
To do the purchasing.
Exactly.
So there's nothing in what will come out of this defense review policy that would, for instance, say to Canadians, yes, it has to be F-35s, or no, it can't be F-35s. That's not going to impact the decision at all in terms of what you buy?
The defense review is not it's not part of the procurement cycle. The defense review will allow us to prioritize the procurement of what we need.
Yes.
Because we do have a laundry list of procurement programs in place right now.
Yeah.
It will most likely allow us to decide what we need to move forward. And there's a few things we've already done immediately that we need, the certain staples. We've moved some projects along. For example, the interim AOR, the ship that we needed, that Davie Shipyard was given the contract for. So there's immediate needs, but it'll allow us to prioritize things properly to making sure that we can have the right capabilities for our troops at the right time.
I get that, but does that mean then that there could be a delay in replacing the CF-18s? If you go through the defense review and the decision is that you want to better defend Canada's Arctic and have, a better power in the Navy, and obviously you can't afford everything, so you say, well, we're holding off again on the CF-18s. I mean, that's possible that could happen.
No, for the F-18s, no, we are going to be moving forward. I mean, that's something I can say with surety that that process will be moving forward, and
because their life cycle's done.
There's certain capability gaps that I've already identified, and we need to fill those. And so I want to prevent capability gaps. When we look at the Arctic, though, we can't just look at one capability, whether ships, airplanes. It's a system in place, for example, with NORAD, how everything's interoperable. Those are the conversations we need to have part of the defense review and realign things. And how do we work together with the Coast Guard as well?
This ministerial panel that you've named that has the former Defense Minister Bill Graham, former Supreme Court Justice Louise Arbour, Raynaud, lots of notable names. What is their role going to be? Are they going to go around and talk to Canadians? Are they going to sort of filter down the information for you? What do you see them being able to offer you?
One is they're my advisory panel. Right. So as we're collecting the information and it's going to be synthesized through the department, they're able to take that information and have that expert and different perspective view on it to advise me, because there's many different layers of how it needs to look, and I wanted to make sure that we had the right mix of people to advise me for making those final decisions. They will have the opportunity to go to different consultations, all of them or some of them, and so it's different aspects of it. And for example, if you Madam Arbour, she's got phenomenal experience in many aspects, but especially with the United Nations. Yeah. Having that legal framework is very important. So, for example, we might want to go down a certain realm, but we need to make sure that we're in the cognizance of looking at international law as well, and that our military and operations might thinking of conducting it, we do it in a manner that's, everything from looking at international law for armed conflict to the Geneva Conventions.
So, but the presence of Madame Arbour on that panel, does that lead us to believe that there will be more emphasis on peacekeeping and more work being done through the United Nations? I mean, that's what I would deduce from that.
Actually, I'm hoping that she actually, her expertise on the wider range from not just that, because, I mean, with their experience, I think that the knowledge of her experience will be wasted. We need her experience on all aspects, from full combat conversations to peacekeeping as well. When we look at UAVs, the conversations, we're going to come up armed versus not being armed.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations we need to have. What type of potential policies we need to in place, and all the expertise from all the different panel members. I'm hoping they're going to provide their perspective to all the conversations, not just their particular expertise.
How does the Defense Review sit inside the broader Liberal government foreign policy? Do you have a clear idea of what the foreign policy is of this government and how that will shape the defense policy and its review?
No, absolutely, and it's important that our defense review doesn't sit in isolation. There are other reviews that are going on when it comes to cyber review and the development side. Mr. Bibeau is doing our own. We work very closely with Minister Dion when looking at situations around the world. So
you'll consult with him as this goes on?
Absolutely. It's a necessity because you can't do this in isolation. Yeah. And we kind of demonstrated this also when we did the planning and the announcement for Operation Impact. But as we move forward, we need to be very cognizant that no one department and no one capability has all the right answers. And I think with all the conflict that we see in the world, we need to get better at working in a multilateral environment, having more of a global voice, how we're going to do this and how we're going to be nested in with all, not just within our various departments, but how are we then together going to be working with other nations as well.
Would you say by the end of the year when you're going to have this done that Canada's military will be different? It will be what, more modern, more responsive to the world that we see? What will it be?
No, we'll have the defense review done. The work of implementation actually begins after that.
But that's the goal, is that that the whole military can better respond to the current stakes in the world. I
think I'm actually very proud of the fact of where the capability and the flexibility that military already provides. But what it does is the efficiency of military needs is, I would say, even higher than other agencies or departments. And to making sure they have the right capability to be able to respond to the various threats, to be able to respond to humanitarian disasters around the world, but more importantly, do we have everything that we need for our domestic response, whether it's a counterterrorism in support of public safety, or our domestic response as well for disasters like simple things like forest fires.
Sure. Okay, last question, and it's in relation to my interview with General Vance earlier this week. He says that the training part of this mission will be operational probably midsummer. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And he also talked about the increased risk, something you have also been pretty upfront about. I'm going to play this clip to you and then get you to respond.
Sure.
Canadians need to be prepared for the fact that there will be confrontation, there will be fighting. I'm certain of it. There has been already. This represents an expansion of the mission on the ground. So it stands to reason that there will be fighting and potentially casualties as we face this mission.
What do you have a number of casualties that you've been given that Canadians should expect?
No, you can't. I mean, it's impossible for that. And I mean, I've been in operations where we had same questions asked before we launched an operation. You can't give that. But one thing what we can say is, before anything that we do, whether it's an operation or planning from before making a decision, as we did for Operation Impact, is making sure that the decision that we make, one is the contribution that we're going to make is going to be meaningful, and this was. The second thing is, now, how do we now look at all the threats that are out there, how do we mitigate? Making sure all the troops have all the necessary tools and training to be able to defend themselves. And General Vance, I know for a fact that he's done that.
But the risk assessment is there. You have one, and you know that there are casualties and potential injuries that are
absolutely. But we had a responsibility to work with our coalition partners around the world, and our troops face danger not only on operations, but we face it in training. I mean, I got to witness just this week some of the training that our troops do. to get ready for the environments that we put them through. The training itself is also dangerous, right?
Yeah. Okay, Minister, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.